Hello, this is Ben Paris, Vice President of Operations for the Seminole County Chamber. You are about to hear Good Morning Seminole, our monthly signature event.
Well, let's go ahead and introduce our panelists today. Let's start out with David Metcalf from the University of Central Florida and Global Blockchain Ventures. Bryan Repple with OsteoStrong Lake Mary and the Repple Wealth Group. And Aria with Flairr Labs. So, over the past couple of Good Morning Seminoles, we've had people bring up various aspects of blockchain. So we're just, this is going to be almost like a blockchain 101. So let's go ahead and start out. David, you're sitting right here. What the heck is blockchain?
So I could give you a technical answer, or I could give you the easier answer. The easier answer is that blockchain is a way to store value in any type of medium. It's not just about cryptocurrency or Bitcoin or some of the other things that you might hear about. And that's what's fascinating to me is how can this help your businesses? How can it make your data transactions more secure? How can it make it so that other groups can trust them more easily? And that's really the key element. How do you restore trust? Really in a society that's having a lot of trouble with trust right now too, but particularly in those different transactions. There are a number of components to it, things like a database that allows you to store this information, a cipher or an encryption that allows you to keep that data safe and secure, and of course this record, this ledger that is called the chain that you put those transactions on, that multiple organizations or people can all look at and trust that no one's modified it, tampered with it, or messed with it. It's a great way to think about your digital money of the future, your land records, your voting records, your health records, your education records for places like UCF. And those are the things that we're trying to do to unlock value with blockchain.
This podcast is sponsored and produced by AVL Essentials, your essential audio-visual production company. From podcasting to live event production, we have you covered. Please visit avlessentials.com to learn more about us.
So Ray, let's. So what are Bitcoin and cryptocurrency then?
Well, to put it simply, Bitcoin or any type of cryptocurrency is some sort of digital asset equivalent to real money that is built based on blockchain that David just explained. So any kind of digital asset, any kind of token per se that is built on that, and you could exchange value with it, for example, giving it to another person and receive some sort of value for it, is called cryptocurrency. And Bitcoin is one instance of that cryptocurrency. We have thousands of them literally out there.
So Bryan, the big question, how do I get rich off of it?
Let me go with the Bitcoin because that's the largest market cap that's out there right now.
No. Tell me about richness.
Well, that's we go to rich.
Okay.
So one of the unique things about Bitcoin itself, it is a store of value, and that's the way. I don't even like the term cryptocurrency because I think it gives it it's just a word that doesn't fit. I think it's a digital asset, and I think it's a better way to look at it is a digital asset. I think when people hear currency, there's a lot of conflict that can go on saying it's going to replace the U.S. dollar. Is it going to do that? And I think if you look at it as an asset, right now Bitcoin. So how to get rich? I don't know. I mean that's a game. It's speak to your financial advisor. But let me just play a game. Speak real quick on that. Is right now Bitcoin represents about a 700 billion market cap. Ethereum, which is another one that we're going to talk about here today, represents about a 300 billion market cap. Put that in relation to Ethereum. That is the equivalent of Bank of America market cap, PayPal, Disney market cap. So what you're seeing is a major play in the space that's continuing to grow. So the word I would say is, in this space that we're in right now, just imagine where things potentially can be in 10, 15 years from now. We've already come from 8 years, 10 years, about 2008 when this space was really developed back in 2008, So the imagination is to get rich, as the question is, time, development. More institutions right now are coming onto the platform. You're seeing insurance companies, Mass Mutual, a big insurance company that just went into Bitcoin. You're seeing countries now, El Salvador just created Bitcoin as a trade for them. So you're seeing institutions, you're seeing countries and adaptation take place. So Rich, I think, get in early, hold, and let time play out and stay educated.
Well, your family's been in financial management for a couple of generations now here in Seminole County. So what was it that first drew your attention to this technology and this sort of investment?
Yeah, I like blue ocean concepts and principles and strategies. Max Hooper, which we are all friends with on this panel here, came to me. If you have not heard of Max Hooper, he is a 5 PhD educated man. He was involved in the cable vision space. Max and I spent about 3 hours on the phone one Saturday. I couldn't get out of the car, sat in a parking lot, just listened to Max talk about blockchain, digital assets, and this whole space evolving. He said, this is more exciting than anything he's ever come across in his history. And Max is probably early 70s, late 60s. I don't really know. He runs Ironmans and 100 miles, so the guy's probably 45. But he was just couldn't get out of the car listening to him and his enthusiasm about the space. And from there, I went on my own journey, went out to a blockchain conference in 2016 and started seeing I started imagining what's possible in this space. And you go back to, if you think about 1994, I mean, put yourself back in 1994, 1993, 1995, when someone came to you and said, hey, what's your email address? You said, what's an email? Or what's the AOL address? So just to give it one extra space of framework is if before there was records, tapes, think about music, then all of a sudden, if you wanted to reach 8 billion people around the world, what would you need to do? If you wanted to create speed, lower cost, you digitalize it. And that's what music did. We've done that in the book space. It's become digitalized. Now we're talking about money, finances, and speed, security, things that David was just talking about, what blockchain is going to allow. So that's what intrigued me about the whole process, about where this possibly can go in the future.
So Ray, let me start out with you on this one, and all of you can join in. The Grateful Dead just released an NFT of some of their memorabilia. So should I go ahead and buy that as an investment, or should I buy it for fun? And maybe we should just explain what an NFT is, actually.
Absolutely. So NFT, or non-fungible tokens, are digital assets that you could acquire and it becomes yours. It belongs to you. It's just like the old concept of collectioners that, for example, you go to Africa, you find something, you go to Asia, you find something, or you go to America, you find something, and you hold it for yourself. You want to keep it as your own collection. This is the same concept in the digital world, but the good thing is that you would keep this forever. It would never go corrupt, or it doesn't slip off your hand, or so on and so forth. But I would personally not suggest to buy them for getting rich. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme in my perspective. If you would go and buy some of this stuff only to get rich, unfortunately the bubble, in my perspective, is going to burst and you're going to lose your money. But on the long run, there are specific types of NFTs that are coming around, and they are called utility NFTs. And those things are actually very, very useful, and you could buy them and you could actually use them for some sort of service. I will explain this later.
So anybody collectors here, collecting things like baseball cards, collecting memorabilia, collecting curios, collecting art, yeah. So NFTs, non-fungible tokens, are a way to do digital collections or to verify something that is in the real world. And that's what's exciting about what Ray was just talking about too. There was an example. Anybody a LeBron fan? King James. So an example is a video clip, which would be like the equivalent of a digital baseball trading card or basketball trading card, went for $230 million, a 12-second clip. Then you have the rights to use that to verify that that's a valid piece of memorabilia. I would not do it just for the monetary value, but if some things like that are meaningful, then it might be worth it. I know my family is Dodger fans, and another part of the other side of the coast, but they had their first offering of a digital bobblehead for Kershaw in about 2018. And I got that for my son, kind of a keepsake, something that wasn't very, high cost at the time. And, it started to go up in value too, the same way that a baseball trading card or a bobblehead would go up if it was a physical asset sitting right on this desk. Those are the types of things. Music, same type of thing. Those are things that you might want to consider. But I would say the same thing. If it's meaningful to you, not just speculative, then it might be worth looking into.
So I guess I'm putting away all my dreams of getting rich today, and let's start talking.
I never said that.
We're all here, not on an island, as somebody said to me earlier about if they had invested a lot when they first started. But so what are some of the practical uses? David, let's start out with you. Practical uses of blockchain. What are we seeing today? I know we've kind of hinted at a few things, but give an example.
Yeah,
each
so.
of them.
I found out, I'm kind of humbled to say that I found out about blockchain and Bitcoin about 2012 when some of my students came to me and they said, Dr. Metcalf, we're working for you in the lab at UCF, but we're also working for this guy and he's paying us 1 Bitcoin an hour to work outside for him. Now, this was when Bitcoin was like $30 to $60 a coin, which is still pretty good money for a student. But over the course of the time that they were in the lab, not only did they teach me a number of things, additional things, I taught them a number of things too, not just about the cryptocurrency value, but about how we could unlock value in things like electronic health records, which we did a project for the National Science Foundation to look at whether blockchain could be used to validate health records, something that's very valuable and that if it's stolen is probably the number one ransomware thing in the world if you're looking at cybersecurity and your own privacy, your own rights as individuals or your organizations. That's an example. Right now at UCF, we're looking at how you could do a universal transcript, and with the Army also, that doesn't just follow you at that one institution, but that can follow you your whole life and be accepted by every government, whether it's a state or federal government, every licensing body. Some of you probably have licenses, whether you're CPAs, whether you're lawyers, whether you have a real estate license. All those types of things can also be stored as a record of your achievements, not just your academic transcript. Those are the types of things that are going to unlock great value and go well beyond just cryptocurrency in how you might use this for practical, everyday utility, hopefully within some of your businesses.
Bryan?
Yeah, I think there's many applications to this. How many of you love going to the doctor's office and filling out all the paperwork? And then you go to the next doctor's office and you fill out the same paperwork, and dentist's office, and then your local gym, and you're filling out the same paperwork over. Medical records, the storage of medical records ran off the blockchain. Part of that is just creating an application for that, and I'm surprised it hasn't been out there yet, or if someone's doing that, would allow that. The real estate market, opportunities there, speed of transaction, flow of money, security, elimination of some of the, call it third parties that stand between the buyer and the seller. You're looking in the securities market, which I'm in, is speed, lower costs, quicker confirmations, things that can happen. It's already happened in the insurance space. I see supply channels, how people do business, so you can track the supply channels of your products all the way through, know where it is, ran off the blockchain. So I think there's going to be a lot of applications coming, and that's part what EFT is. It's an application. You're seeing that in the digital space. You're seeing that in the collections market. Music, I think you're going to start opening up now. You're going to start seeing the business side of it. Again, imagine going back to 1994, and people said it started off with AOL. Then it went into, no one thought about, now we're doing all our banking transaction, PayPal, all the trade that we're doing now online. That wasn't even an idea in 1994, 95. And that started happening in the 2000s. Now we are doing it all off this gadget here 30 years later. So yeah, I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of opportunity that we're going to start seeing in the day-to-day applications for businesses, consumers, but it's all being developed.
Ray, why don't you talk a little bit about what you're doing? Because one of your goals in Flairr Labs is to create a cryptocurrency that is used in everyday life.
Absolutely. Before I do that, I would like to give you another example of what these two gentlemen mentioned, which is way more familiar to everyone. The ownership papers for your car, the ownership papers for your house, the ownership papers for your company, the stock share certificates for your company. These are all the assets that could potentially become blockchain-based, and you don't need to carry the papers. You don't have to put them in the safe or keep them somewhere that no one else can have access to. They are all out there on the internet, and no one can touch them. Having said that, my company, my team, and I are developing a new generation of cryptocurrency based on the new generation of blockchain. We call it block lattice. Blockchain is only one line, one chain, and everyone are supposed to write on that one chain. So it has its own problems. For example, excessive consumption of power is one of them. It's bad for your environment, for our environment. The transaction speed is low, so 1 million people are trying to write on the same blockchain. They are competing with each other. The transaction fees are high because of that, and so on and so forth. I can talk to you about that for hours.
Ray, real quick, before you move forward, explain what you mean by one writing on one chain. I saw a lot of eyes kind of like
Block train.
I'm sorry, my bad.
kind of looked at. So step back, one little back.
Sure.
One little step back and explain that to us.
So to put it simply, there is something called blockchain. David explained it very well. I like the way he described it. So it's essentially a digital ledger. Whatever transactions that happens between two people are getting written into one block, and the block gets added to the chain. So as we move forward over time, the blocks are getting added to the chain, and the chain becomes longer and longer and longer.
Thank you.
So that's the concept of blockchain. But what we are doing, my team and I, are building a almost 3D model of that. So consider that as a tree. And in this tree, each person gets their own blockchain. So not one blockchain, but multiple blockchain, and each person gets their own personal blockchain. So if a transaction is supposed to happen between myself and these two gentlemen, for example, between myself and Bryan, only my blockchain and Bryan's blockchain gets involved, and it doesn't have to do with any blockchains in this room that belongs to any one of you. So that makes things faster, that makes it more safe, more secure, and feeless above all. So what we are trying to do is to give this technology and a token of this technology, which is called Flairr coin, to everyone, so everyone can enjoy these benefits.
So we're going to get into it. We just kind of explained the linear aspects of blockchain. Let's explain some other things. Obviously, we've heard quite a bit in the media about mining. What are we talking about when we're mining for Bitcoin or mining in the blockchain?
Yeah, so I couldn't talk about mining without talking about one of the most famous miners in this area, too. I'd like to have this gentleman over here stand up. This is Tony Tate from LitChain. He is doing responsible and environmentally sustainable mining close to the source of power. It takes a lot of power to do this type of Bitcoin and blockchain mining. Thank you. Yeah, the thing to think about with mining is just like in physical mining, this process of solving these puzzles that are online, these cryptographs and decrypting something, is the way that new coins are created and verified. So that's what mining is creating new coins. The same way that you would go and find new gold that hadn't been discovered in the ground, or new oil, an oil well. That's why they use the term mining, because it has an analog in the physical world, even though it's a very different process. It looks like solving cryptographic puzzles. But unlocking that value and people that are doing that sustainably is some of the things that we're quite excited about. And when you talked about how to still create wealth, that is creating wealth out of air. You have to have the right tools to do that, but it is creating wealth out of thin air. That's the most amazing thing about some of what's going on right now too.
So Ray, what's a token?
A token is a digital asset. Any kind of digital asset that belongs to a, let's say, blockchain could be called a token. Cryptocurrency itself could be a token or is a token. So that's a digital asset that belongs to a blockchain, a network that would do something for you. Some of the tokens just hold value for you. Some of them are used to transfer information. Some of them, for example, NFTs, you could hold and keep for the sake of value that they have for you or for others.
Bryan, what's Ethereum?
Well, I mentioned earlier about market capitalizations, but let me kind of back up real quick on Bitcoin because it'll play into what Ethereum is. So there was a guy that wrote a white paper back in 2008. You guys might have heard Satoshi Nakamoto. And that was about Bitcoin, and Bitcoin without blockchain, Bitcoin wouldn't exist. So out of that, a 19-year-old, what were you doing at 19, comes out, and Vitalik Buterin, at 19 years old, discovered and wrote the network for Ethereum. And that was done on the blockchain network. And so what Ethereum is, how many of you have ordered an Uber? You've done an Uber. How many of you have bought something off of eBay? Right. So basically, if you think about an Uber, you have a driver and you have a rider. So you have someone that's saying, hey, if I order it, this person will pick me up. I will pay Uber, which is the middleman, the third person, intermediary in this transaction. What Ethereum is doing, it's decentralizing, removing that third party. That's what it's doing. So that's what Bitcoin does. And a lot of these applications, so when I look at Ethereum, it's a digital application that people are writing NFTs on the Ethereum network is where the largest platform right now for NFTs, and many of these applications are being developed on, is the Ethereum network. Like I was saying before about the market capitalization, all that is, for that those don't know the numbers, what that represents, number of shares outstanding times the current market price. It gives a size of how large the market cap is of that position. And so you can see right now that the Ethereum market cap is continuing to grow. And what's really cool about it is as more applications are developed, they become interacted into our lives. Whether we're talking about whether it's in real estate, medical records, voting, which would be great to have security in voting, and speed and transparency and all those things. As that becomes possible and it's developed, and if it's done on Ethereum, you'll see the Ethereum price rise, possibly. I always say possibly because we will just kind of see how these things play out. So that is what the Ethereum network, it is a decentralized, that's a core part of this whole thing. How many of y'all like the Federal Reserve and the government? Right. I don't see many hands go up. So this is an opportunity. And just saying this too, this what intrigued me many years ago when I saw this was Bitcoin, Ethereum, and these digital assets are global. So you think about what's going on in Cuba, El Salvador, Colombia, around the world. As more individuals get these in their hands, 8 billion people get access to a phone, 5G networks, speed. They don't have access to the US stock markets. They're not buying Walmart stock. What they have the possibility of buying is Bitcoin, Ethereum. So when they want to leave their country and they want to flee their country, they take the phone, a code with them, and they can get out. And wherever they buy that Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever digital asset token they have, they can go wherever else in the world and exchange that in. So it creates a lot of freedom for people, unlike us, that have the freedom, for them to have a possibility to preserve their capital, to move to free places. So access is opening up to many people around the world, and that's what these assets are doing.
So it's not on my list, but Elon Musk keeps talking about this thing called Dogecoin.
Well,
Tony,
I don't know what the application.
Tony is shaking his head
what's
no
the
on this.
application of it? That's the question.
What is it
Yeah,
actually?
what's the application of it? How's it going to be used?
Anybody can explain?
Yeah,
Go
for
ahead,
sure.
Bryan. Explain what Dogecoin is.
Dogecoin started as a joke. To be perfectly honest with you, it does nothing, literally nothing. But big names got behind it, they made jokes about it, and all of a sudden it picked up. So now people are trading Dogecoin, they keep Dogecoin, they invest money in Dogecoin, but again, it does nothing.
Okay. So one last one that people may hear. David, what's a wallet?
Yeah, so the same way we have a wallet in our pockets or purses, you might have a digital wallet. And that digital wallet is something that can store this value. The interesting thing about a digital wallet like this for storing your Bitcoin or your Ethereum or any other type of store of value is that it's something that you can't necessarily see unless you have one that sits on something that looks like a little USB key or maybe a watch or something like that. It's something that sits out on the internet and is your storage place for these strings of numbers and letters, usually about 16 or 26 long, that you can store that are the verification that you own something that is out on this public blockchain of whichever one you've chosen. So if you think about it, it's really almost like more like a key ring, keeping the keys that you might have that prove to people that you are the owner of that particular digital asset. So that's what your digital wallet is within this space. And there's a number of them, number of ways to do it. You can have some that are online. You can have some that are offline. The offline ones are the ones that you could walk through a border with $1 trillion of stored value that you can then, on the other side of that border, show and prove and verify that you do have that. And it could be more than just money. It could be proof that you have a piece of artwork that is not forged. It could be proof that you own a vehicle. It could be proof that you own land. It could be proof that you have rights, like voting rights or other things too. That's the incredible, you couldn't fit all that in your normal wallet, in your purse, right? So those are the things that you can do with this digital wallet. That's almost like an expandable space, the size of the world, if you actually had ownership or provenance over those particular assets.
So be ready. We're going to answer. You're going to be able to ask some questions after this last one. But David, talk about one of the things that Global Blockchain Ventures does is invest in companies that are in this kind of realm. Tell us about one that makes you real excited.
Yeah, so take my UCF hat off, and outside of UCF, we have a venture fund, and we had an earlier one. We believed so much in this trend line of what was going to happen with blockchain that we decided that we would start a fund. It's with Max Hooper that he mentioned as one of the general partners, as well as Al Weiss, the past president of Disney Parks and Resorts here. So the three of us got together and decided that we were going to look and see where we could try and grow this space and help other people achieve their dreams. One of the things that we're super excited about is a recent investment in Flairr Coin, because looking at how games and how non-fungible tokens, this store of digital collectibles and assets, could also be improved upon within blockchain. Something that's not just that one linear chain, but multiple chains. That is going to be more secure, more expandable over time. So we're excited about that. So I got to give a shout out here for my fellow panelists too. And Bryan was an early investor in some of those areas too. So talk about some of the interconnection between the three of us. I am excited about the whole enterprise space, not just how blockchain might enable cryptocurrencies. We've talked a lot about that today, but how it can change businesses, make them more efficient, make them more scalable, make them more secure. Those are the types of things that excite me, because that's something that is empowering to everybody, whether we invest in that business or not, whether that's going to be that trend line that we see almost like air, or almost like when you think about the internet, it's something that that your business may not be able to live without. Being able to verify and trust that a transaction has moved from point A to point B, and that there's not a copy of it that retains in the original owner of that, is a superpower of the internet. Those are the types of investments that we're looking for across the board, whether it's land and real estate use like our Invenium Capital Partners, whether it's an easy on-ramp to the internet, for blockchain transactions, like what you have with Kaleido, another one of our investments. Those are some of the things that fit that same theme of how financial transactions and digital transactions are going to be reshaped by blockchain technology.
So there's obviously probably a lot of questions on this. If there was anything that you wanted to ask, don't be afraid. Now is the time for the one-on-one on this. Karen, go ahead. I saw your hand first, and no question is too low. So ask.
Just in general, okay. First of all, my head's gonna explode. This is way over my head.
My students had to explain it to me 3 times before I got it. So I'm just going to tell you, understood.
I guess the thing that always comes to my mind first is security, privacy, hacking. How is that protected, given that we know that it is so easy for someone to go in and compromise the cybersecurity of a business?
So we have a couple. Let me repeat it for our podcast.
Yeah, sure.
Real quickly, the question on hand is talk about security from hacking and other aspects of this, and how secure is the blockchain and all this stuff that we're talking about. David, why don't you talk?
Yeah, sure. There's a lot of technical answers, but the answer that I like the best is if you think about someone trying to fool one person or one organization, whether that be a bank or a government or anyone else that has a particular asset, let's say. This you'd have to fool thousands of people, thousands of machines owned by those people in order to fool the blockchain network. And that's the thing. It's a network that verifies it. It's not just one entity. No matter how trusted that entity might be, they can be fooled. And that's what ends up happening with a lot of the ransomware, a lot of the cybersecurity, and the other things that happen bad out on the internet too. So that's really where having this multiple sources of verification gives protection to the whole network, everyone, not just any one individual.
So Davey is opening up a mining farm at Next Horizon. Bryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to read something. This came from Fidelity Digital Assets, just to give you some thoughts. So you can see it from Fidelity, which everyone's heard of, I would hope. This was written last year, and what they did is they went out, they did a study on their institutional investors. They took 800 institutional investors, and this is some of the takeaways they got. So you just to kind of say, am I the only person doing this, or is the guy from Subway telling me to do this? What's really going on in this market? I always run whenever the Subway guy tells me advice. It's saying that's when you sell everything. So that's kind of my red flag of investments. So this was from the institutional investors that they did a peer review on. Digital assets are gaining in favorability among institutional investors, with 80% of investors surveyed finding something appealing about these asset class. 800 institutional investors, 36 say they are 36% are invested now in digital assets. Institutional investors. That was basically 6 out of 10 believe digital assets have a place in their investment portfolio. So I'm doing this from a financial planning perspective, so you can say, like, where does this fit in my own portfolio? How would I allocate to it? And I'm just going to kind of give that as some thinking there. U.S. investors allocate digital assets increased from 2019 to 2020 from 22% to 27%, the amount of people that invested into digital assets. Bitcoin, continues to be the digital asset of choice, with over a quarter of respondents holding Bitcoin, 11% had exposure to Ethereum. So those were the top 2 core holdings.
Let me cut you off real quick because I got time for one more question,
Okay.
and we answer actually Rich in the back. So how do you break the law on this? Wait,
I
nobody
don't
here
want
is
to answer
from
this.
Venus,
Unfortunately, that is possible because you have those same rights of privacy too. But as we've seen with some of the recent ransoms, without the power of block lattice, it is possible to go and retrieve that information if you're law enforcement, to crack through that and to regain those lost digital assets too. So law enforcement is up to speed on that. In many cases, it's a constant black hat, white hat is what they call it. The bad guys, good guys going back and forth. I would just say that, don't let this intimidate you. You can even see things like PayPal having the ability to start to easily have an on-road to invest, or Robinhood, or even some of your other financial online exchanges too. So it doesn't have to be this dark art of something that you have to know a lot of things to get started if it's something you want to do. I would not go and sell your house and put it all into Bitcoin or anything speculative like that. The same
if
way
you
would
do,
be
talk
an
to
international money trader. But most good financial advisors that I've talked to said, you should have maybe 1% exposure in this, maybe up to 5% if it's performing for you. Like if it grows from 1% to 5%, that's still okay. But please don't go overboard on that because of some of those risks of return. But it's not as hard to get started. If that's something you're interested in, than you might think, or than it used to be.
So let's give this panel a nice big round of applause.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about the Seminole County Chamber, please visit seminolebusiness.org or check us out on all social media at the Seminole Chamber.